Hello everyone, I'm here today with a process video. This is my Staycation album. So it's Twin Cities from October of 2025. I've already done day 1, now I'm on to day 2. And I had planned to do a bunch of process videos for the rest of this. That didn't happen. I have some for day 2, and then I just started working on this over 2 weekend days and I finished it. I just got so into my groove. I didn't want to stop to record. So you're going to get 2 flip-throughs, day 2 and day 3. This is day 2. So let's start with that. So like I said, it's a staycation, but we did stay in an Airbnb. My friend came up to visit me from St. Louis, but my house was occupied. So we chose to just do an Airbnb in Minneapolis to make it easier. And so I just scrapped about the house where we were. They had this cool mural right in their backyard along their fence. So that was really fun. So when we got up, this is Saturday morning now. She flew in Friday. So this is Saturday morning. We got up and I took her to one of my favorite coffee places in the Twin Cities as a whole. This happens to be on the St. Paul side, but it's called Nina's. You can see from the inside, hopefully. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. There we go. You can kind of see the architecture of the building in the inside. It is a gorgeous building just on its own. But then they have made it so cute inside. And I even took one of my children here once and they loved it too. So it's just a cool place. And I had some coffee related, there's a whole sticker sheet of coffee related things, and the vibe and the style of it just worked really well with Nina's vibe. So had to use that. When we were done having coffee, we went downtown St. Paul. This is kind of up above the lower part of the city that's downtown. We went down to Raspberry Island because there was an art exhibit happening, and you'll see that in just a minute. So this layout also happens to have a flip out, so you can see the statues here. And I tried to keep it somewhat simple with my embellishments and cards because, like, look at these. The patterns are very bold geometric patterns for the most part, very bold colors. So I wanted to keep the other things simple. So that's why I have this card. It's two-tone. But then all I have is this foam camera embellishment. And then here, the card kind of had a lot of color going on too to match. So I wanted these to be simple. So I just did the day. And then I have a Staycation stamp set. So I was able to use this stamp. So here are more of the statues here. And we actually saw this right before it ended. It started in the summer, I think, like July maybe, and went till the end of October. And she came October 10th through the 12th. So we were pretty close to the end. Most people had had a chance to go already. So I think that's part of the reason why it was quiet. That and the fact it was a Saturday morning, still quite early. People weren't out and about really yet. So that definitely worked to our advantage. And on this one here, you can see I used a template. This was in there already, as was this. All I did was add that two-tone heart sticker, and this was good to go. Over here, I used another template that I had. This is one I find a little bit more difficult to use, but it worked really well for this because I had a lot of images that would fit in these smaller spaces. And then these phrases were already there. I didn't adjust them in any way. So really all I had to do was add the embellishments. So I picked these 2 phrases. I had these puffy dots in all different colors, and they just happened to match. And then here I had picked this up at one of the places we stopped. I think maybe it was at Landmark Center. Don't remember for sure. And it matched the colors really well, but I couldn't figure out a way to incorporate it that made sense. So finally I decided, you know what? I'm just going to back it on something that matches, cut it out, and do this. And it'll just be a nice little break amongst the layouts. Here's more statues. I really loved this one, and so I decided I wanted a selfie with that one. And once again, very simple. All I did was add this chipboard saying here, and that's all it needed. Yet more sculptures here, and then I just talked about going over there, the fact that it was quiet. I loved all the patterns, the colors, all of that. Very simple embellishments again. This was super easy. I just printed this 4x8, slapped that on there, and that's it. And then here I wanted to break these up a little bit, and I did have things to say, especially looking out. So this is a view of downtown St. Paul, part of it. There's more over here on the left, but you can't see it here. but the river was pretty still. It was not choppy that day, which was nice. And we were literally, there are steps right here. So I was literally at the base of the river and we could see out, which it was a really lovely, calm fall morning. So after that, we were still in downtown, but we went to a different area. So I did have to get in the car and drive to a different part. We were near Landmark Center, which is this building, but they had these beautiful plants outside, and they kind of spoke fall to me, very autumnal looking. So I wanted to include those. And I had a perfect, very simple card that would match. So chose to use that. And then here again, I did a template. So this came with that. I did change the color. This was black originally. So I just went in and changed the color to match this color as best I could. Slapped that on there, and that's all it took. Here's another collage from the inside, and this really worked well because this is Landmark and I've been in there fairly frequently. I don't need to have a ton of layouts about that. I know what's in there, I know what it looks like, but my friend had never seen it, so I just did some basic shots. I mean, the architecture, hello, it is stunning. And then they have these letters from the ceiling. I thought that was cool, so I took a picture of those. Again, I used my Staycation set, stamped this out, used a little pennant to make it look kind of like a ribbon, and just picked matching colors, and I think that worked out nicely. And then over here they had a map there. So this is Landmark Center, very nicely featured there. So I just chose to put some arrows there to point that out, but then you can kind of see the rest of this area of downtown and how it's laid out. So like here's Raspberry Island, so we went from there to Landmark Center. These are not that far, so you could walk it if you really wanted to, but we were already in the car driving, so we drove it. But that kind of gives you an idea of how the city is laid out, which I think is good. And actually, one thing I should point out is I mispunched the holes for it, and that happened more than once. I need to pay closer attention when I'm doing that. So you'll see at least one other one where I didn't put in a page protector. I just left it outside, and I misaligned the holes. But like I didn't have another one of these. I wasn't going to go back and try to redo it. So it's fine. I'm probably the only person who's ever really going to see it, and I don't care. And here's the other side. Then we were changing to a different area again of St. Paul. This is the Summit Grand area. And I had a chunk of this paper, and it just felt so fall to me. I wanted to use it, and it kind of matched the door here. I picked out some yellow and tan hues. Again, very simple embellishments, just some stickers. This was just, a phrase that I had printed out digitally. I cut it apart and used it that way. And then here I had just some random fall themed chipboard elements left over I was trying to use. That worked perfectly. And then we were walking along Summit here. So I parked on the street and we walked a couple blocks, and then we went back to the car, moved it again. That was kind of just our mode of transportation for like 2 hours, I think we spent over there. So this was kind of at the beginning, and I was happy to see some purple here. So of course I wanted to use that. Had a perfect card, had a phrase available. Why not use it? And then here we're closer to the governor's mansion now. We'd moved the car, but I loved this house. Very autumnal feeling planters and things here. All I did there was stamp. Very simple. And then these two kind of go together. This is a different house, obviously. This is the governor's mansion, so this is Governor Walz. That's where he lives. And then I had just a little bit I wanted to say about how the neighbors had decorated. And this was not directly across the street, but almost very close. So it worked out to scrap those together. And this came on the card. I didn't add that. So that's part of the digital card. I added these stickers, and then I added these elements. This is just a flat paper item. This is actually chipboard. And then we popped into a stationery store because we could see it was decorated, and we wanted to see if they had anything we could use for scrapping. And they actually did. We bought a few things in there, so they will get used. So scrapping about scrapping, kind of. But still the decorations, were very cute. And so I had this card. Again, I just picked colors that appeared in here and did the best I could to make that match. And I love that I'm able to get some 4x6 cards in there because I don't use those nearly as often. So that's kind of nice. And then here I was actually able to use a 4x6 vertical, which doesn't happen a lot either. That's even less common than this. And again, I just decided not to use an attacher. I just put holes right in it, stuck it in here. And then I also had picked up this postcard. of places in St. Paul that I wanted to make sure got in here. And this is fun because we went to several of these. We didn't go into the Capitol, but we did see it. It's viewable from where we were, so we saw that. We were in Rice Park. That's directly across from Landmark Center. There's Landmark. We saw the High Bridge, didn't go over it. Saw the cathedral, didn't go in it. We did not go to Mickey's. We passed by the farmer's market. It wasn't going at the time, but we passed the venue. Alliance Field, we weren't even near that. And then Como Conservatory, we went to that on Sunday. So I thought this is perfect because we either basically saw or went into 90% of what's on here. And then that was kind of the end of our St. Paul stuff for that day, because then we went to Minneapolis. So we had booked a river cruise that afternoon, and actually another friend of mine was supposed to go with us, and she was not feeling well. So it ended up just being Robin and I. So my friend from St. Louis and myself, we went and did this activity. So we did a paddle boat right along the Mississippi River here, and it's more on the Minneapolis side. We had already crossed over, and you don't really go to St. Paul there, at least not on this one. So this was close to the University of Minnesota, actually, if that helps anybody orient where we were. And then another collage here. I took so many photos on this. I had to do collages too, just to force myself to pare down on the number of photos I was going to use. So here I got in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. And I dropped in 2 digital cards that I already had. No journaling even required here, so that's kind of nice. And how fitting that when I am filming this, Gary, who designed this, has just passed away. So this is a tribute to his work because he designed the Weissman Art Museum at the University of Minnesota. And here is more from our river cruise here. So we passed through the locks. I wasn't sure. They didn't mention on the description if you actually went through the locks. I thought maybe we would just go up and turn around. We actually went through. So we got to experience the raising and lowering in the locks, which was super fun. Nice treat for my friend, since she had never done that. And then here's the famous Stone Arch Bridge in Minneapolis. When we were done with our tour, we were a little hungry. We weren't hungry enough for dinner yet, but we had kind of had weird snacks, coffee stuff so far. We needed something. So we're like, let's just find someplace for an app and we can sit and get something to drink as well. So we went to Christos. We both love Greek food. So it worked out well. And I have to say, I've been in Minneapolis how long? I have never been to Christos. Or if I had, I didn't remember it. It's not exactly in an area that I would frequent a lot. So I'm thinking I was never there. So we got to try that. It was wonderful. I actually have a flip here. Oops. So I'm just going to show that. But again, I kept it very simple. And I tend to be a little picky about Greek food, but I was willing to try this and it was totally worth it. I highly recommend if you are in Minneapolis and you like Mediterranean cuisine, this is where you could go. And then over here, after that, we went to the Sculpture Garden, also in Minneapolis. And we knew that was probably a pretty quick spot. It's not a huge area and there aren't a ton of sculptures, but enough, to fill time. And we decided we were going to go to the sculptures. So I have a couple featured in here. And then walk across the bridge. There's a bridge that goes over the freeway. You come out in Loring Park, and then just beyond that is the Basilica of St. Mary, which is stunning. We knew we could probably get there before they closed in the evening, so that was our goal. And these I just did 2x2 squares, made the little tented cardstock things for them and adhered them like that. And once again, I want to be able to see these, so I had to live outside the page protector. So I just punched holes in it and was on my way. This is the bridge that you have to cross, and it's bright yellow. Part of it's actually blue too, but it's down here. It's kind of a little harder to see, but it's fun. And then you're looking over the freeway both directions. So it's kind of fun to be able to see that. And then there's a tunnel beyond that you can see that kind of just starts and curves around. So it's a unique spot. And then you're looking at our sort of modern art museum called the Walker. One direction, you turn around the other direction, you're looking at the Basilica. So it's very nicely situated. And so we walked over to the Basilica, and I realized, I did take a picture of the front of it, but I didn't put it in here. I'm totally okay with that because I've been there many times. I know what the front looks like, so I chose not to put that in here, and that's fine. But the inside is just so beautiful, so many nice details. So I used some stained glass paper that I had left over from a different project. A little bit down here as well. I just tried to kind of match what was in the window and then this kind of goldish yellow color, and I think that worked out well. There are more photos inside the basilica. Again, I pared down a lot because I've been here a lot. I don't need to have tons of photos, but some more of the stained glass paper. Again, matching the colors that we saw. There's another stained glass window there, and this is beautiful. This is like a little side chapel area, but I've always loved the mosaic work in there. So when we were done there, it's getting to be evening. It was, mid-October, so it got dark sooner. So it was already dark by the time we went out to have some dinner. And we went to a place called Ola Arepa. And they do a Halloween pop-up bar and a Christmas pop-up bar. So if you're in Minneapolis at either of those times, this is a great option for you to go try because the food's excellent, the drinks are excellent, and they decorate. So here again, you can see there I mispunched. But again, I wasn't going to redo it, and this was the only piece of this paper I had left, so it's not going to get redone. I'm fine with it. And here you can kind of see some of their decorations inside. This is the front of the menu. This is just it's a different corner that was decorated. It was quite dark, so this didn't turn out as well as I wanted, but they matched, so I used them. And then I just did this here. My original plan was to use sequins, but I could tell this was getting quite chunky already, so I chose not to do that. Here's some more from there. That was their drink menu thing that they had, Lagoon of Doom. And I just used some color matching items I had for Halloween. There really wasn't anything about candy that needed to be said, but I had them, they matched, it worked really well with this, so I chose to do it. And then here, same, I just picked some phrases. I chose to outline them in black ink. They showed up better when I hadn't done that, so I chose to do it for the sticker as well. And then here I chose some fun background paper, another pattern but not too distracting from this, and it's very light purple, very lavender, so I felt like that worked. And then here is another flip up, again candy there to kind of match what was over here. And then some further pictures. We had the best street tacos, mushroom street tacos. Oh my god, like I've been dreaming about them ever since we went here. They're so good. I need to get back over there. Then here are some drinks we had. This one actually changed colors. There was a light like in the bottom of it that would change colors as you were drinking. It was very fun. Now, are these drinks a little bit more expensive because of that? Yes, but if you want a pop-up experience that's themed, you have to accept that's how it's going to be. And we thought it was worth it. They did such a good job. And oh my god, the bartender, she was so fun and friendly to us. I mean, our whole experience was great, but we sat at the bar and we really enjoyed her. It was fun. So this was just the back of a business card that they had sitting there, and I thought, well, I could make use of that in some way. So I found this paper to kind of match with this. I felt like the pink and the purple, it was all a theme. Really enjoyed it. And now you can go out and look at their website if you want and support them. And this was our last event of the evening, and it was unplanned. We were just driving to the Airbnb from the restaurant, and I happened to see it out of the corner of my eye, and so I quick made a left-hand turn so we could see it, and holy cow, this was on a corner. They had their entire yard, the side and the front, like all done up. It was crazy. And I took way more pictures than this, but I chose to pare down again to not go crazy. But super fun just to randomly find it at the end of our evening. And after that, it was just back to the Airbnb and relaxing. We had a very full day, and we needed to get ready for Sunday. So that's it for this one. I hope you come back for day 3, but now day 2 is complete. Thanks for watching.